morning, everyone. I am so excited to welcome you to today's Caregiving Summit. My name is Judy Taylor. I'm the director of the Idaho Commission on Aging. We are a state agency out of the Office of the Governor, and our mission is to prevent early or unneeded institutionalization. That's kind of a negative. So we like to frame it as a positive, that our mission is to help older Idahoans age in place with health, safety, and dignity. Obviously, the main thing standing between anyone and institutionalization is a dedicated, committed, and educated caregiver, which is why we prioritize caregiver support as one of our #1 strategic missions. We are pleased and honored to be one of the partners in this effort. This is our 6th Caregiver Summit that we've done throughout the state, and we've saved the best for last. I'm sure you'll agree. I hope that you leave today's conference feeling supported, valued, and empowered. But I also hope that you fully participate in this summit, because what you gain from the summit, we gain back from you in ideas and feedback around our programming. All of the partners here get together and use that information to change our service delivery, our interventions, sometimes our priorities. So please fully participate with today. And we'll both get what we need out of the time together. It's my honor to now introduce Mike Hershey, the very capable and beloved director of our Area 5 Area Agency on Aging. So once again, I wish you a great conference day, and Mike, take it away.
Thank you so much, Judy. My name is Mike Hershey. I'm the director at the Area Agency on Aging. Like Judy said, thank you. I just want to thank the Idaho Caregiver Alliance and the Commission on Aging for picking us for their next area to visit. And so I appreciate that. Focus on Southeast Idaho is always important for me. This year's theme for the conference is Moving Respite Forward Through Communities of Strength. Having Older Americans Month theme this year being Communities of Strength, it's perfect way to start this conference by having that same verbiage in what the theme of the conference is. So I really love it. I'm just so excited about it. It's raining here in Pocatello this morning, and I was thinking back to the 2019 ARCH Respite conference I went to, and the theme was Illuminate Respite. So if we can have some illumination of some bright skies today, that'd be great. It's my pleasure now to introduce one of our local elected officials, and that is Senator Mark Nye from District 29. So Senator Nye, if you'd like to say a few words, if you would please, we appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Mike and Judy, good morning.
Good morning.
It's really, as senator from this area and for the state, Region 5, I just want to add my welcome to y'all. Pocatello is the gateway to the Northwest. Miss Kagan on from Virginia. Anyway, I think you are.
Yes, I'm here.
Well, it's a long way from Brandeis out here. I went to school in Cambridge, right next to Waltham there, and just want to say hi and hope you get out here sometime. It's really
I've been out several times. It's a beautiful state.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just want to thank you all for your leadership and advocacy for the respite care. And it's really a special, this month I think is the Older Americans Month, isn't it, for the U.S.? And I just want you to know that you all have a big impact in the legislature for your advocacy. And in Brandeis, there was a graduate there named Eleanor Roosevelt, I think. I bet you, Jill, that's where you got your inspiration, because here's a quote from her. It says, quote, "With the new day comes new strength and thought." And I can't stay on long for your program, but thanks for being our gateway and access to respite care and empowerment. And remember, everybody, Pocatello is the smile capital of the U.S. And you get in big trouble out here if you don't return a smile. So I just hope sounds like a great program, Mike, and thanks for letting me say hi, and hope you all have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Yes, Senator Nye, thank you for that welcome and your ongoing support in the legislative arena. My name is Sarah Taves, and I direct the Center for the Study of Aging at Boise State University. And that is where the Idaho Caregiver Alliance is housed. I echo Judy's comments about the value of this work, the importance of this work, and the Idaho Caregiver Alliance would actually not exist without the support of the Idaho Commission on Aging. So we greatly appreciate their leadership and also their trust that they've given or have in us to lead this alliance as a statewide initiative that is housed outside of their unit of control. It gives us some latitude and flexibility for us to be able to capitalize on opportunities that appear that we are committed to capitalizing on, and we appreciate that trust. We also greatly appreciate the support that we receive from the area agencies on aging and all of the entities and organizations across the lifespan that work to support family caregivers. I know we have a variety of agencies represented on this call that represent that lifespan perspective. We work really closely with the Idaho Parents Unlimited, with the independent living centers, along with the area agencies on aging. So I want to really emphasize the importance of the work that we do that is across the lifespan. We believe aging kind of starts the moment we're born. And so to build systems of support for that is really important. Destiny, if you wouldn't mind flipping back to the first slide, I just would like to take a moment to call out our incredible sponsors for this event. And they are listed at the bottom of this slide: AARP Idaho, ARCH, the Western Regional, Area 5 Agency on Aging, Blue Cross of Idaho, Molina Healthcare, Optum. All of those sponsors have made this event possible. And something really exciting to us is, for the first time ever, because we're virtual and expenses are very different this day and age, we're not buying you breakfast or providing you with a lunch. All of the proceeds that have been donated from our sponsors are going to support the Lifespan Respite Program at the Area 5 Area Agency on Aging. So we're really delighted that these sponsors are directly providing support for caregivers. And we know that the Area 5 will use those resources wisely and well. And now, Destiny, if you wouldn't mind, if you can flip so we can see the whole audience for just a moment. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Just to give you the Brady Bunch look of who's in the room, again, want to celebrate all of you that are here. This is an incredible opportunity for us, members of the Idaho Caregiver Alliance, to hear from caregivers, to hear from real people in doing the work of caregiving. And so we relish the conversations that we're going to have today. I echo Judy's comment too. We hope you will stay engaged with us. The breakout sessions that we have scheduled are incredibly rich and important for us, and we will use the information you provide. We are committed to that. We are representing the voice of the family caregiver in your local area, at the state level, in that policy arena, and we will use the information that we learned today. We have an information-packed agenda. Jill Kagan's going to provide that national perspective. Lynn and Janet will provide a state perspective, and then Gina will provide information on what's going on in the Area 5 agency area in Southeast Idaho. I also want to echo Judy's comment that we saved the best for last. I hail from Aberdeen, Idaho, which is in this region, and I must tell you, my mother, who is 99, I'm a long distance caregiver. I live here in Boise and she's in Aberdeen. It wouldn't be possible for her to remain in her home without the supports offered through senior services. The Meals on Wheels have been incredibly important. The Fit and Fall Proof program that's delivered in Aberdeen has been incredibly important to her socialization and her ability to thrive. So there's heart and soul in this event. And again, we so appreciate your engagement and helping us learn more about your realities and how we can build resiliency and support together. So let's see, we'll be using the chat as our kind of Q&A. So we'd encourage you to put any questions you have in the chat. We have someone monitoring the chat. And so we'll be answering questions. There are a few prizes that will be given out throughout the day. So I encourage you to hang in for, you may be a winner of a prize. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to our primary organizers of this event, Destiny Triplett, who is our communications coordinator, event personnel extraordinaire with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance. Research deserves high praise for her efforts of putting together this virtual summit. She's also supported by Taylor West, who is an undergraduate intern with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance, and she offers wonderful support. So, and the planning team as well. But just want to give a special shout out to Destiny and Taylor for their work on our behalf. And with that, throughout the day, our speakers will be introducing themselves, and we are on a pretty tight agenda, so we're going to try to hold to that. And so I am now going to turn the time over to Gina, and she will guide us through our caregiver panel. Thank you, Gina.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today, and I love seeing all the support here, and I hope everyone gets a lot out of this today. We are fortunate enough to have some very special people join our panel of caregivers today, and I want to thank them all in advance for taking the time to be here with us and to share their experiences. Our first caregiver today is Brent. And Brent and his wife, Deborah, they retired early so that they could travel. His wife, however, was diagnosed with dementia early on, as early as 60 years old. He's recently reached a point with his wife where she can't be left alone anymore. So we've been working with Brent to get him some support and services, and I'd love it if Brent would take a minute and just tell us about his experiences as a caregiver and share what a typical day would be like at his home. Brent, would you like to begin? Are you there, Brent? I see his name. I know he's here.
Brent, you may be on mute.
One second. Brent, can you hear us? Okay. Well, why don't we move forward then? Maybe we can catch Brent next. I'll move on to Linda. Linda started working in the healthcare industry when she was in high school. She has over 40 years of experience working in care facilities in Pocatello and Salt Lake City. She spent the majority of her career working at Hillcrest Haven in Pocatello as the activities director and the assistant administrator. And more recently, she is a caregiver to her husband and her 9-year-old autistic granddaughter. Welcome, Linda. Could you share your experiences as a caregiver with us, please?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I feel like I've been kind of out of the loop because I retired from Hillcrest about 10 years ago. But I guess once a caregiver, always a caregiver is what I found out. Not only a professional caregiver, but now I am a caregiver for my husband and, like Gina said, my 9-year-old granddaughter who lives in my basement with her family. My husband's issues are more physical, daily needs of bathing, things like that. And so my granddaughter's needs are more us trying to figure out her autistic world and how we can best support her. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about it, what my day is like a little bit with these two different ages in my same household and me trying to be a primary caregiver and working full time. And it has been a challenge that I have loved and didn't even recognize I had that challenge till I networked with some of my friends from the Office on Aging. I didn't realize that I really was a caregiver, although I've been a professional caregiver all my life. And so my typical day begins about 4:30 because I do need to be to work by 6. I work from home, but I do need to make sure myself and my husband have our bathing and are set up for the day to continue on through the day. So before I get to work at 6, we get our baths in. And because my husband's issues are weakness, a lot of falling occurs during ADL time or bath time or when he's getting dressed. So he needs a lot of supervision at that time. And so after our morning ritual, he's pretty much on his own. He can handle the house. The house has been set up so that he can pretty much handle the house. Our daughter does live in our basement apartment, so that's a lot of help. I typically don't have to really care for him while I'm at work. I do work from home. Our autistic daughter our granddaughter gets up quite early also. Her bathing schedule is a fiasco most days. Lots of times we're in a hurry to get her ADLs done or her bath and grooming, and sometimes hurry is not on her mind. And so that's a challenge to get her out the door and get her taken care of for the day. Some of my things that I've learned along the way. First, I learned that I had to admit that I am a caregiver to family members. And I did not understand that. I've been a professional caregiver for 40 years. And I remember when my own mother got a little bit confused, I remember looking at myself being mad at my mom, thinking, Mom, you don't need to act like this. You're my mother. You know, I had a really hard time with that. And now dealing with my husband, who is the love of my life. We've been married 45 years. He's just the love of my life. He's my everything. And to see him physically unable to do the things that he wants to do and loved to do all of his life is very difficult. So one thing that I've had to learn is that I am a caregiver and that it's okay. I think I finally realized that I was a caregiver when a friend invited me to a course here at the Office on Aging called Caregiving for Caregivers. And I didn't get to finish the course. My life is very busy, like all of your lives. But the book, I think I took 4 classes in the course, but the book was immeasurable to me, the amount of help it has given me. And I kept the book and I read it constantly, just letting myself know that it's okay. It's okay to have bad days and it's okay to be mad sometimes. And it's okay to hide in the bathroom and cry when you have to. It's just okay. And I think for me to come to the realization that I was a caregiver was really hard. It was really hard. I was a caregiver to my own family. Some of my struggles have been, of course, seeing my husband decline and seeing he's been a go-getter. He's a craftsman. He loves to do woodwork. He was a maintenance supervisor, always busy when we weren't at work or doing a rebuild or something for somebody. He was doing something to our home. He loves wood and saws and just loves to create. Very much a caregiver himself. Now he's unable to do that. So just to see him decline has been very hard. To watch his having the need for a walker. It's very, very hard for him to accept and very hard for me to see. I think one of the things that we deal with as a family and as a married couple is depression. He gets depressed seeing me work hard to still keep a family functioning. He gets depressed that he can't function like he used to. And I get depressed seeing him hurt because he cannot do those things that he has always loved to do. One of those being helping other people. And recognizing this in each other has helped us both. We can pick each other up and we can kind of help each other through the hard days. And open communication is something that I had to face. I had to be able to say to my husband, you are declining and I am here to help you. And he had to be able to say to me, I want to be building. I want to be doing things that I cannot do. And that's hard to do. That's when you've been together so long and always out helping in the community and always helping the kids. It's really a hard thing to do. But recognizing that now's the time that we need help. And I think for me, networking. I knew a lot of the area professionals because I worked with them for 40 years. But to understand and realize that they might help me now was a whole different story. One of my friends at the Office on Aging almost had to beat me over the head to tell me that I was a caregiver. With my granddaughter, it's a little bit different. She's only 11, so her needs are a lot different. And the community that we live in has been excellent in a lot of ways. She's a sweet little girl, but she was labeled as a troublemaker at school. She didn't have a diagnosis. And she was first and second grade. I got to look at some of those reports, and she was labeled as a troublemaker. And she had a third grade teacher, and I want to really emphasize this, a teacher that noticed the difference in her and started pushing the right community buttons. We had been to the doctors and stuff, but we couldn't get a diagnosis. And we knew something wasn't quite, I don't want to say normal, but maybe we knew she acted different than the other little children her age. Many times she was a bully and many times she was bullied. And that's hard to accept and understand as a parent and as a grandparent. So she had a third grade teacher who I will love forever, a young teacher who had just graduated from ISU 3 years prior to being Lizzie's teacher. And she started pushing the right buttons and demanding that we get testing and demanding that our own doctor listen to Lizzie's day and Lizzie's world. And it was still till Christmas time, the year that Lizzie was in this teacher's class, that we finally started getting people to listen. And during the year, we finally got the diagnosis that Lizzie is autistic and she is different and her world is different. And Lizzie's not going to change a lot, but we can change to live in her world. And what a wonderful resource this teacher was to us. She's young, and unfortunately, she's not in our school district anymore, but she was instrumental in us finding the help that we need. Resources in the community, doctors, even a physical therapist that has been so good for little Lizzie. Lizzie don't always have the control, the muscular control and the control of her circumstances. And so this young, very young teacher taught us so much and helped us reach out to the right agencies and the right community that we needed for Lizzie. The pandemic had just started, and Lizzie's little world at that time revolved around a teddy bear clinic that always was done at our hospital. And of course, because of the pandemic, we couldn't go. So Lizzie's teacher went and got supplies from around the community, a little teeny tiny stethoscope, and brought them to Lizzie in the home. This is a school teacher that has 28 students, and still Lizzie was her priority. So I just want to, I guess as a caregiver, I just want to say, reach out, admit that you are a caregiver. There's nothing wrong with it. Needing help. I've always been the helper, the fixer, the go-to lady, the answerer. I need that help now. And accepting that and reaching out is what my message is today. Thank you, Gina.
Linda, that was wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing. We really appreciate that. Your input is really valuable to what we're trying to do today. And I thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So I wanted to see if Brent's here today. Brent, are you with us now? I saw him once.
Oh, yeah.
There you are. Brent, would you like to tell us about your, welcome, by the way. Would you like to tell us about your caregiving experiences? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll figure out how to use this one of these days before we're done, I guess. Yeah, my name is Brent Moore. I am caring for my wife, Debbie, who has fibromyalgia, and she has dementia. She was diagnosed with dementia probably about 3 or 4 years ago. One of the doctors that she goes to recognized that she was having a hard time answering questions and always referring back to me. And so consequently, we ended up going to a doctor, the specialist, a neurologist, and he diagnosed her with dementia. And so consequently, she's we've been dealing with it, but it's she's slowly going downhill, which is typical of dementia. Our typical day is really we really don't have a typical day. It's just get up and deal with whatever we have to do, and of course first thing in the morning, every morning she wants a banana. She gets a banana, or I give her a banana, and then we figure out what we're doing for breakfast, and she feeds the dog breakfast, and we deal with bathing, not on a daily basis, but she's very difficult in that sense, and not that she's a dirty person. She's always been a very clean person, but she is very temperamental. I do most of the house cleaning and take care of things around the house. She's beyond doing that now. she gets her mind set on certain things. She wants to drive. She has a car. She still has her car. She doesn't have the keys, but she'll spend time every day out by her car figuring out why she can't get in it and being angry at me. So we go for drives a lot because she wants to get out of the house, and that satisfies her for her needs for being in her car. She worked as a for the IBEW, which is the electrical union, and unfortunately she lost that job, and that's when she started going downhill. She had lost her father, lost her little sister from cancer. So I think all the things mounted up. So consequently, she ended up being her mind going a different direction, and which is the only explanation I can find for why she has dementia. But we deal with it. She's unpredictable. I have a couple acres, and I try to take care of them, but I have to regularly make sure I watch her because she gets in the refrigerator and does things, and she likes to microwave, and so it's an ongoing difficult battle. She'll decide to in the middle of the afternoon to go to bed. And like yesterday, she went to bed at 3 o'clock. Said, "I'm going," and I of course she has a large amount of medication she has to take, and I try to get it down her, but it's a difficult battle because if she don't want to take them, I can't shove them down her throat. I tried that, and it's turned into a mess. One of the things that after we discovered she had dementia, we had a friend that was dealing with her father that has dementia, and she suggested I go to the support group that the AAA was putting on. I knew nothing about it, and I asked, well, how do I get involved? And she said, just show up. So I started showing up to these support group meetings that they had monthly, and I can say that's been a lifesaver. It's helped me deal with some of the problems that I never even thought about, and learning from other people that have the same problems is been very helpful. So I appreciate that, and of course I did also attend the caregivers class, and that was also very helpful. And I think dementia is a very strange disease, and I don't think there's very many doctors that specialize in it. It's been I recently had a bout with my wife where she quit eating. She went a week without eating or drinking or taking any of her medication. I finally dragged her into the doctor's office, and the doctor tells me, well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with her, but he thinks it's the dementia progressing. So I deal with that, and he basically tells me, he's a good doctor and I appreciate him, but his explanation was just take her to the emergency room next time because there's nothing I can do for her. So it's an ongoing thing that we're doing. I'm going to take care of her, be her caregiver as long as I can, and hopefully things will turn out okay. Or it won't turn out okay, but it's going to get to the point that we'll have to do whatever. She's her family's they care about her, but they're not. It's hard for them to spend much time with her or do anything with her. So anyway, that's my story. I will say that the COVID-19 epidemic has really affected us as far as me taking her any place. I've had to take her to the doctor at the hospital, and you have to wear a mask, and they have to take her temperature, and she fights that. It's been a very, very difficult, and of course the people at the hospital have got to know us because we have to go up there quite a bit to the doctors, and they just let her go because she just takes off and heads for the elevator. So that's the kind of battles we fight. So anyway, I do appreciate everything that's going on with the AAA and this respite program that they I guess I should talk about that I've been set up with, which will help us, and hopefully we'll be able to find someone that can take care of her or help me take care of her. And I have found some help. I'm hoping to find more. So anyway, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. I appreciate you taking. Oh, I can hear that. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us. I know it's hard. It's really hard, and I feel for all of you. And I want to help you as much as I can.
I understand that. Thank you so much.
Our next guest caregiver is Don Colby. And Don was a caregiver to his dear wife, Delphina, and she had dementia, and she has unfortunately recently passed. Don plays the string bass in the Idaho State Civic Symphony. He also owns a musical instrument repair business now, and he is also a very special friend and advocate for the respite and the PTC programs here at the AAA. Don, would you like to share with us your caregiving experience?
I would love to. Thank you. I'm Donald Colby. I want to start by thanking Gina and Mike for inviting me to share my story with you today. I'm I'm taken as I watch Gina with each of these stories, and she becomes more and more emotional. And I think with everything said, that's the basis of why this is such an important meeting, because there are people who care. There are people working for the state, for the local agencies, who just don't know of any other way to conduct business other than to be a part of our lives, people they've never met. So having said that, and I don't know if Senator Nye is still on or not, but I sure want to thank him for his support. My wife and I met Senator Nye when we first came to Pocatello in 2007. He was just an average citizen then, a lawyer, and was the attorney for the foundation for whom I worked for at Idaho State University. And we had many good conversations with Mark. And my wife, who was born and raised an avid Democrat, walked out of his office one day and said to me, you know, I could probably vote for him. So I think that's a testament to his personality. So briefly here, my wife, Delphina Escontrias Colby. I met her in El Paso 53 and a half years ago. We were married up until March the 4th of this year, when she went to be with God, and we're all sad, and I know she's happy, so it's a good thing. Her diagnosis really was slow in coming. She didn't have early onset, but she started showing signs of Alzheimer's back in her late 40s, early 50s. And as we talk about things today, I think one of the huge issues is identifying Alzheimer's as it begins to take hold. I don't think we do a good job of that right now. Delfina was a very successful photographer. She shot for national magazines. She did wheelchair sports. She loved what she was doing. And in 1997, she put her camera down and she said, well, I think I'm done. And I couldn't understand that. And she walked away from it and just didn't think too much about it. Or I didn't see much that she was thinking about it. Fast forward, we moved here in 2007, as I said. And she was always a person who loved to be in control and did not want to have somebody doing for her all the time. Well, for 2 years, I tried to talk her into getting her Idaho driver's license because she didn't want to be driven around. She didn't want to do it. And I got the book for her and sat down and I would offer to help her study, and she evaded that. And I just didn't understand that at the time. Now I see that she was showing some of those signs of not being able to deal with facts. The Alzheimer's was beginning to take probably a stronger hold. Her diagnosis didn't actually come officially until 2016. And by that time, she was diagnosed with late stage Alzheimer's. She was still able to move around. She was doing things pretty much on her own. I was having to do all of the housework. She'd given up on books, another thing that I didn't understand at the time. She wanted to be the bookkeeper. So those things were all taking place. And here I'm thinking I'm a very, very capable and tough guy, you know, me Tarzan, you Jane sort of a person. And I began to learn what Brent and others have mentioned, and Linda, that you have to start taking things on a step at a time. And so I think as I look back, I think that's one of the really important things that your agency is focusing on, and I think needs to really be supported as we move forward. And that is to recognize what's going on here in the early stages. I know Alzheimer's can't be stopped. In fact, in my research for this, I see that Alzheimer's is the only one of the 10 most serious diseases affecting people that can't be cured, it can't be stopped, and it can't be prevented. And that just in the last year, Alzheimer's deaths have gone up 143% and cancer deaths have gone down 7%. So I remember a time when cancer was the insidious one. We were scared to death of it. We didn't know the word Alzheimer's. So I think that's one thing that's very important for the agencies to begin to really attack. It has to be done with money, obviously, and money is a tough thing to come by. I know that because when I came here as a fundraiser, the head of fundraising at Idaho State. And I know how difficult it is to prioritize what you're going to have to take your limited resources and put them toward. But let me tell you why I think it is so important for these agencies and for Gina and Mike to be fully funded. As everyone else, or most people who are involved in this situation, I think I mentioned, I thought I was fully capable. I could handle all of this. I knew it was going to get tougher every day. I didn't know how tough. I grew up in a family with 5 boys and no girls, so I thought I was a pretty rough guy. But I found out that this disease can bring a capable person to their knees. I saw my wife from 2016 to 2021 very quickly deteriorate. I was the sole caregiver up until about 2018 and found that that was just not a viable solution, primarily because she was a woman and she had her personality, and I think she was very embarrassed to have accidents and have me have to help her clean up and take showers and do all of the personal hygiene things. And I very quickly also recognized that that was causing me to go against one of the things you're taught not to do, and that's get angry. Don't get upset because it's not personal. And so one of the best things that happened was that I decided to start bringing in caregivers into the home. I had decided early on that I was not going to put my wife in an institution for a number of reasons. I won't go into those right now, but I'm glad I didn't. So I started looking for people to come in, capable people, and man, it was difficult. I couldn't find anybody who either was willing to do it at the hours that I needed it done, or didn't want to charge more than I made in a week, or I mean, it was just a difficult situation, or were capable enough. And then, of course, as you all know, after you get through all of that, you got to find somebody who is a fit with the person who has Alzheimer's, or you just can't bring in Joe Blow who's going to start giving orders and tell people to go to the shower and do this and do that. So I struggled, and fortunately, the nurse at our church, Deb Ryland, was helping me, and she made some suggestions. And the first thing she did was brought me a big bag full of information, and half of it I think came from Gina. And it was information on how to succeed, who to get a hold of, what kinds of programs are available, just a plethora of information. And through that, I was able to get a hold of a couple of agencies that were helpful. But agencies, as you all know, are expensive. And in order to deal with the agencies, I had to pay almost 3 times per hour the cost that I paid for private caregivers that I was able to identify and bring into the home myself. So the agency approach quickly became a non-viable approach. And as we got to the situation in Delphina's care where she couldn't dress herself, her sanitary needs were personal needs were at the mercy of those taking care of her. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't remember anything about what to do in the kitchen. She couldn't even pour herself a glass of water. So it became obvious that we had to go from a few hours of help a day to having someone in most of the day, and I continued to be her primary caregiver at night. I can tell you that when we finally did come up with the folks who were a good fit, and some of those we found through the agency and through networking with Deb and with other folks, we then had a group of people who made Delphina happy from morning to night. And as insidious as the disease is and was with her, she woke up every morning with a smile. Sorry. And we had our crackers and our juice, and she loved it. And then the girls started showing up, and they just took over. And when they walked in, I was dismissed. She several times, we had one caregiver who's a delightful young girl from Ireland, and she would walk in and Delphina would look at me and she said, "Well, did you want something special? I mean, we've got things to do." And this is when she could barely talk. I mean, her vocabulary was almost gone. So my point here is not to make you feel sorry or anything. My point is that these caregivers who are so hard to find and so important are underfunded, are difficult to you have to pull them away from their lives. And I know you folks know this, but I think it's important to repeat it. All of this involves a dedication on their part that we have to start rewarding. We do not reward them. In looking at the figures, I see that Idaho is identified as having 95% of the state not yet funded for either health care or caregivers who can assist. Thank goodness I live in Pocatello, where that is not the case. This agency in Pocatello, I think, deserves 5 gold stars if you give 4 for the best. They care, they identify, they make sure that resources are available, the power tools, the Meals on Wheels, just one thing after another, which is so important for a person like me who is feeling frustrated and scared to death that you're not going to be able to do enough to take care of the person that you decided half a century ago that you were going to make sure that everything was okay. So what do we do? Well, I think we have to take a very clinical approach, marketing approach, to what is happening here. It cannot be a secret anymore. We cannot hide the fact that we have in the state of Idaho 27,000 known cases right now of Alzheimer's. And if you look at what the national figures from the Alzheimer's organization state, that it's going to cost each family about $325,000 to care for that person during their life. And the state is going to pay about $30,000 of that. So that means that the state of Idaho, if they don't do anything, are going to have to come up with about $2 billion just to take care of the current cases that we have in this state. And those are reported cases. There are probably many more because, as we know, Alzheimer's is by some people considered to be just a pariah, and you don't want the public to know that it's there. So I would suggest that if we can get Senator Nye and his compatriots to sit down with us and start talking about how we fully fund this respite program that Gina so adequately runs. I'm just amazed with the work she does. I don't know what she does between 2 and 4 in the morning. She obviously isn't busy then. I think that's the only time she's not working on this thing. And Mike's support. I know Mike is in the background coming up with dollars here and dollars there and getting grants. And what has to happen is we have to get into this fully funded situation where we're not depending on grants and money over the transit, but we have a steady income stream dedicated to this program. You know, the state of Idaho is the only state in this area in the Northwest that does not have a full-time state employee whose charge, whose designation is to take care of Alzheimer's. Utah has it, Washington has it, Nevada has it. I mean, we can pretty much go on and on. This state has to start supporting Alzheimer's and dementia in general in a way that is serious, that we're not just paying lip service to the fact that we think, it's probably important. So I want to thank all of you for your time. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk. There's so many other things that I wish I could say, but I know you've probably got something else to do in this meeting today. So I'm going to again thank Gina and Mike. I'm going to thank Dr. Taves. I'm going to all of you, Sarah, those who are speaking. Folks, we're a group that needs to become a power. We need to become a force to be reckoned with. And frankly, I think the people I've met so far are the core of that force to be reckoned with. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. It's been a pleasure working with you, and your world makes me a better person, just knowing you, and I appreciate you. I appreciate all of these caregivers here today, and we have one more. Our next caregiver is Angeline. And Angeline is she runs the Veterans Directed Care Program here at the AAA. She has been in healthcare as a caregiver in the healthcare industry for 25 years. And she has she takes care of her father who has heart problems. And she also has a child who is cognitively disabled. And Angeline would like to share her story with you today. Angeline, thanks for being here. I'll let you take over.
Thank you, and I appreciate you letting me tell my story. So I'm Angeline, and I'm a caregiver to, as Gina said, my father and my daughter, who is 24 years old, but will forever be my baby. She had to go through physical therapy to learn how to walk, speech therapy to learn how to talk. You know, it's all of the things that you expect your children in the first 2 years of their life to be able to do. We had to teach her how to do it. And now there's no stopping her as long as stairs are not involved. Because she can trip over a stair, whether she's going up it or not. She goes to adult daycare during the day just because she needs that interaction. She still has speech therapy because when she's talking, if you don't tune into what she's saying, you can't understand her. And you say, what? Or can you say it again? She shuts down and doesn't speak at all. And when she does come back around to speaking, then it is even less understandable than it was before. And then the frustration starts all over again. She begged for a baby for a couple of years because her body was there, just her mind wasn't. So we got her own puppy, and then another puppy, and then another puppy. So now we're up to 6 dogs just to keep her satisfied with the entire baby role. She has a safety issue. She doesn't understand her own safety, what it takes to remain safe. And so every time I think I've outsmarted her when it comes to electronics, she outsmarts me and somehow works her way around me to get back into that little area that most people don't consider extremely safe. So she keeps me on my toes where that's concerned. She has friends that are good for her and friends that lead her on the wrong path. So that keeps me yet again on my toes. And sometimes I feel like I'm a smothering mother. But I know I need to do these things to keep her safe and the family safe as well. The biggest hindrance that I find in her care, in providing her cares and my father's too, my dad is stubborn. He will only let me do so much, but he expects the world. So I do my best to give him the world and as little as he asks for. My daughter, she wants, as any 24-year-old, 6-year-old would want, she wants, and she understands that she has the responsibility of working for it. So she will put in a mean job of cleaning the bathroom to the point where she scrapes the paint off the walls because she wants that little extra something or other. And that's okay because I can repaint the wall. She's earned what she asked for. And that makes me happy for her. She's a great child, though, like all children, she can be a little frustrating. And at the end of the day, I just have to give her a kiss on the head and be thankful for what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Angeline. You're a special person. We're going to move on to another segment here, but before I do that, I want to thank each and every one of you who have agreed to be on this panel. I know that sharing can be very difficult. It can be very personal. It can be very invasive. And I appreciate each and every one of you. You give my world purpose, and I am so fortunate to be able to work with you. So thank you very much.
Gina, this is Sarah. Thank you so much for organizing that very insightful and meaningful panel. To Linda, Brent, Donald, and Angeline, we just can't thank you enough for your courage and your honesty I think your frankness is what we need to hear. Dawn, as you called out, we must tell this story, and we must tell it to policymakers at local, state, and federal levels. So appreciate your voice. A couple of themes that I heard throughout the caregiver story there is that importance of early recognition. From Linda's story of her granddaughter with autism, and thank goodness for that teacher that stepped up and helped her identify what was going on, to the dementia piece of that clarity and the importance that is for enabling a caregiver and a family to wrap their arms around the situation that they're dealing with is just incredibly important. And I think it's that work that we can do when we look across systems with a lifespan perspective. You know, to build a silo is not going to meet the needs, but if we can link, if we can knit systems together, that's where we can really bring, I think, the educators to the table, the physicians, the healthcare providers to the table, the social services like the area agencies on aging to the tables, the Idaho Parents Unlimited, the independent living centers, all of those entities that have a stake in the family caregiver. If we can continue to push and tell that story of this lifespan perspective of caregiving, I think that the greater likelihood we have of having success of bringing the supports needed needed for families to thrive and survive. So again, Gina, thank you. And thank you for the panelists. Really inspirational. At this point, we'd like to kind of lighten up the agenda before we move into a presentation from Jill Kagan, who is joining us from the national perspective, but just wanted to have you in the chat. If you, and we have a, in the chat, if you could share with us where you're from, just type in where you're from and how many years you have been a caregiver. I'd love to see your answers in the chat, if where you're from and how many years you've been a caregiver. As Linda indicated in your story, sometimes it's really hard to identify that you are a caregiver. So encourage all of you to look at your realities and reflect on how many years you have been a caregiver. I'm seeing a couple of chats come in, so yeah. Iona, cool. Caregiver from Pocatello, Idaho Falls, 21 years. Wow, Amber, an expert in the room. $18 years, Chansey, that's amazing. American Falls, hi American Falls, Teresa, 19 years as a caregiver. Whew. Three teenagers, so 17 years, Lori, amazing. You're a champ. Oh, hi, Marilyn. Off and on for 15 years. Yeah. Pocatello, 5 years. Melissa, a veteran, supporting your husband, caring for your husband and your mother. Amazing. Lane, welcome from Pocatello, 5 years as a caregiver. So we have a very generous donation of a gift card from Molina Healthcare. And I have the honor of picking from those that responded to our chat. I'm just going to randomly pick a caregiver that responded. And I'd like to call out Chancey with her work there that she's doing in Pocatello with her kids. And we will make sure, Chancey, that you get that gift card from Molina Health as in honor of you participating in this summit, sharing your perspectives and learning along with us today. So congratulations, Chancey. And again, appreciate all of you that had the courage to respond into our chat. And with that, we are going to move to our next session with Jill Kagan. And Jill, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarah. I am really delighted to join all of you today, and I want to thank you so much for the invitation. I have to start off by saying that, as always, I am so honored and inspired to follow a panel of caregivers, and I want to echo everyone else's thanks to you for sharing your stories. And I'm also really heartened, though, to know that there are so many committed people in this room today who are here to help you, but also to work across the state to make sure that all caregivers are supported as well. So thank you all for everything that you do. I'm the director of the ARCH National Respite Network and Resource Center. We're funded by the Administration for Community Living to provide training and technical assistance to everyone and anyone who's interested in respite, including family caregivers who are looking for respite and ways to pay for it. So again, I'm here to share with you what I know about respite and what's happening across the United States. All of you come together today to explore the local solutions that are possible here, collaborative partnerships that are so important to provide the much needed caregiver and respite support. And I, as always, applaud your efforts and stand ready to help you. Your ideas today will come from your own lived experiences and from the specific needs and resources unique to Idaho. But I do hope that today I'll be able to share at least a few innovative examples of success from across the U.S. that might help inform your work today and going forward. Next slide, please. The examples that I'm going to share with you today are generated from states and their partners who are participating in the Lifespan Respite Care Program, which is a very small federal program that's designed to help states that are working in concert with respite and caregiving coalitions, representing diverse partnerships, helping them to build statewide coordinated systems of community-based respite services that serve family caregivers across the lifespan. To date, grants have been awarded to 37 states and the District of Columbia. And Idaho, fortunately, has been the recipient of several of these grants, and you'll be learning a little bit more about how they're using these funds as you progress through the day. Next slide, please. With these grant funds, states, even though the grants are so tiny, states are really doing amazing things. They're working to connect families to respite through these coordinated systems of services, unsiloing those services, as Sarah talked about, providing respite to unserved populations, building capacity through innovative programs, especially volunteer and faith-based initiatives. And most recently, there's been a new focus on models that successfully, one of them successfully being used in Rhode Island and other states to draw on nursing and other students to provide respite. Many states have really worked to increase and enhance the respite provider workforce through training and recruitment. Some of you may know, and some of the caregivers talked about not being able to find providers or respite options that were available when it was convenient for them, or they didn't feel confident with providers who maybe weren't adequately trained. And we find that that's true across the country, that the lack of well-trained respite providers is probably among the most significant barriers to respite use. And we are devoting at ARCH through a new project, collaborating with the National Academy for State Health Policy, to enhance an existing entry-level respite provider training curriculum that was developed by the Respite Care Association of Wisconsin. We're working with an expert work group to agree on a set of core competencies specific for respite providers, and we'll be enhancing that training and field testing it along with a recruitment campaign over the next 18 months in about 5 or 6 states, and then hopefully revise that so that it can be used nationwide. And I only raise it now because as you move forward today with your deliberations, I hope Idaho may consider becoming a field test state. And we'll be putting out more information about this program in the next month or so. Almost all of the grantees devote a considerable portion of their grant funds to helping families pay for respite through consumer-directed voucher or reimbursement programs. And I know that's happening right here in Pocatello. And for the majority of family caregivers who may not have access to publicly funded services or choose not to use those services, grantees are also helping these caregivers find respite opportunities from already existing community supports and activities from their family and friends and from their other circles of support. And these last 2 areas of focus, the consumer-directed respite voucher program and promoting informal respite opportunities, have become especially important during the pandemic, when many community-based respite programs were forced to close, or families chose not to use them to avoid dangerous exposure to the virus. But what we also learned very quickly is that the pandemic, at the same time that we were losing services, was exacerbating social isolation among family caregivers, increasing their stress and anxiety, conditions that were already rampant among family caregivers, and that respite might be their only continuing lifeline to supports. And we had to step up and keep these supports going. And many of the lifespan grantees pivoted beautifully to increasing flexibility, for example, in their respite voucher programs. In Oklahoma, they redefined who is an eligible provider so that trusted family members or friends who lived in the same household could now provide respite that wasn't permitted before. They increased the amount of the voucher so that families could have more hours of support. And they lifted their state household income restrictions, which were already fairly generous relative to other publicly funded programs. Most states that have these voucher programs, Colorado, Nevada, Washington, Virginia, they also introduced similar flexibilities into their voucher programs, including extending the time period over which caregivers could use their respite funds. They were doing everything they could just to make sure that families could access some respite. For those caregivers, again, not willing or able to use these types of traditional respite supports during the pandemic, grantees really got very creative in helping them find other ways to get a break. For example, the Alabama Lifespan Respite Network began a caregiver wellness initiative in which they increased their emergency respite voucher funds, and they designated funds specifically for mental health counseling for caregivers who are currently enrolled with their voucher program. But because mental health services availability can be challenging even in the best of times, Alabama Lifespan Respite also is building a statewide list of mental health providers who are familiar with caregiver and disability-related mental health issues, and making sure that caregivers have that information. In Tennessee, they instituted a mini grant program to provide eligible caregivers who couldn't access traditional respite They allow them to use their funds to purchase health and wellness breaks of their choosing that might include meal kits, magazine, movie channel, or online class subscriptions, board games, tablets to help them access online supports, home exercise equipment. And all during this time, caregivers still remained eligible for vouchers from their trusted community of providers, but they had these other ways that they maybe more easily could get that break. Next slide, please. I have so many other incredible examples from these lifespan respite states that I wish I had more time to share with you. But if you're interested and your state continues to participate in the Lifespan Respite Network, they can look to other states for examples as well. And we've also cited Idaho, some of the wonderful things that are happening in Idaho as examples for other states. And they've been more than willing here in Idaho to share that information. The first report that includes these activities in detail is state summaries of lifespan respite grant activities. It's a state-by-state guide of what states, a detailed guide of what states are doing with their lifespan respite grants. And then our most recent report, In Support of Family Caregivers, really pulls out the most innovative and far-reaching approaches to respite services and system building in the Lifespan Respite Network. And some of those examples that I shared with you about COVID-19 respite responses were taken from that report. Next slide. I also wanted to briefly share with you another ARCH initiative where we do a nationwide search for innovative and exemplary respite services that we hope will provide examples of respite services that are evidence-based or evidence-informed or promising, programs that are demonstrating new types of service models and who are research ready, ready to help us build that evidence base for respite services. Services that are addressing some challenging aspect of service delivery, and I know this is big here, reaching rural or military caregivers, reaching individuals with mental health or behavioral issues. That can often be the most difficult type of respite to find. And you can read more about those services that were selected as innovative or exemplary the last 2 years on the ARCH website. We're currently reviewing applications for those that we will select in 2021, and we'll be announcing those in the next few weeks. And with these services too, we continue to build a database of these examples on the ARCH website. Next slide, please. Given how important respite was and remains for family caregivers in light of the pandemic, we developed guidance to not only help providers reopen or stay open safely, but we included decision guides that can help family caregivers decide if respite is a safe service for them to use and to help them go through the process of making that determination. We also did a series of case studies on a variety of respite models, in-home respite models, community-based overnight respite models, voucher programs that could serve as lived experience and practical examples of providers in our network across the country who were using the guidance to provide safe options. We all know the pandemic has really shown a harsh light on the lack of supports for family caregivers. And in many cases, we literally had to redefine respite to ensure that support would remain meaningful. And in fact, respite may not look the same moving forward, but that may not necessarily be a bad thing. What we've learned, I think in a very compelling way, is that there are many new and creative ways we can support caregivers. And we should build on the new approaches that we've learned about to increase all of the caregiver options and ensure that they're person and family centered and perhaps make them more acceptable to family caregivers as well. Next slide. And then finally, I wanted to just share with you that for those of you who might like to learn more about what's going on with respite internationally, as well as nationally, I would invite you to attend the virtual International Short Break conference that we're hosting along with the University of Wisconsin School of Nursing and the Respite Care Association of Wisconsin toward the end of June. It's going to be a tremendously exciting event. We've got speakers from 15 countries who are going to be sharing their respite experiences, their barriers to respite, especially during the pandemic. So please come learn from our colleagues around the globe about how they provide respite and support caregivers. And we have a family caregiver track at that event as well. Next slide. Just in conclusion, I really want you to know again that as you proceed with your discussions this morning and this afternoon, please know that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can be incredibly creative, and we're here to help you. Again, we have many examples in the National Respite Network of how models of respite support, unique partnerships, employer engagement, volunteer and faith-based community involvement from around the country can serve as your guide. And we're here to share what we know. And Idaho, as the Idaho program here, has been just as generous in sharing what they know and what they've learned with the rest of the network. And our goal is just to help you achieve greater success for respite for family caregivers in Idaho. And I'm really looking forward to today's discussion, and I want to thank you all so much for letting me be part of them. If there's any time for questions, I'm happy to take those.
Jill, thank you so much for joining us and providing that national perspective. You've shared some very tantalizing information. I think particularly there were a couple of comments about the respite competencies, building a training program that would be available across the country for respite providers. Super important and speaks directly to, I think, what our panel of caregivers spoke to, is this importance of supporting that workforce that does provide either volunteer respite or respite that is consumer directed, which is one of the initiatives that we are busily rolling out here in Idaho and hope to support. So, and Jill, we wouldn't be where we are without the support of ARCH and your ongoing participation in the summits that we've hosted in Idaho, your willingness to share, and the ARCH resource website, an incredible source for, we don't have to reinvent a wheel. There are others that have gone before us, and there are others that are very interested in learning what we're doing here in Idaho. So thank you so much for that. For that presentation. We are going to go ahead and move on, but we will keep monitoring questions and maybe circling back to you for some guidance and feedback. At this point in our agenda, we are going to move into our first breakout room. We have 15 minutes that we've reserved for you to be placed. You're going to move into a smaller room where we'd like to gather some information from our participants about strengths and opportunities and weaknesses that exist within our network of respite supports in Southeast Idaho. As you can see, we'd like you to keep your microphone muted. We'd encourage you to use the chat. We will be taking notes in the breakout session, and then we'll have each group report back their findings, and we'll use your input along with our caregiver panel as we work throughout the rest of the day. So with that, I will ask Destiny to go ahead and place us in our breakout rooms. Well, Lynn, would you mind walking us through some of the barriers and the strengths that you identified? And I think as the other groups continue to report out, if it's already been mentioned by another group, we don't have to go into great detail, but certainly indicate that it was reinforced in another group. So with that, Lynn, I'll let you start reporting out findings.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah. Well, some of the barriers identified were the resources, trying to find the different groups to find the information needed. The different types of caregivers, there are paid caregivers and there are unpaid caregivers, and the experiences are very different. Getting caregivers to identify as a caregiver, and oftentimes it's too late. and caregivers do not recognize their own needs. Finding caregivers that'll go to work in rural areas. The direct care workforce is a barrier. Income levels, not being able to afford to pay for care. They fall into the gap, and there's lack of funding for these programs. So we identified many, many barriers and gaps. Very straightforward and honest feedback in my group, and I truly appreciated that. Some of the strength recognized are, we are moving forward. There is the consumer-directed respite program. There is a network forming and the removal of silos. There's the Powerful Tools for Caregivers course. And people are beginning to recognize respite and their caregiving responsibilities will improve with taking care of themselves. And the improvement in collaboration too amongst organizations in this arena. Destiny, Julie, was there anything else? Tina?
I think you're good.
Great food for thought as we move forward today with our building momentum for change. And Marilyn's group. Let's see, you might be on mute, Marilyn.
Okay, a lot of the same things that were mentioned in Lynn's group. First out of the chute was the lack of resources in rural areas, and the need for more transportation to get to services, to bring people to services or bring the services to people. There was some concern expressed about inadequate training for home caregivers, a lack of knowledge about what is available to identify a caregiver, and once again, that lack of outreach into rural, that penetration of rural areas. I think it was, I can't remember whether it was Lisa or who in our group mentioned struggling to find, I don't think it was Lisa, I think maybe it was Linda, trying to find somebody that's a right fit for the care recipient that you're taking care of. That can be a real challenge. And sometimes, even if you have family members around, they're not always stepping forward and giving you some help. So that can be a barrier. Lots of strengths, and I'll tell you, many of them were centered in the AAA that's viewed in the community as a hub, and Mike's engagement with community members in the area. The consumer-directed respite and traditional respite provide people with that option, either or, and gives them some flexibility. And there's a lot of good community resources that the AAA is connected to. Veteran services, the senior centers. So while people might not know where those resources are, the resources are there, and it sounds like they're pretty well connected in a network of services, and that they're very dedicated and willing to help. So it's kind of building on what's there to strengthen and expand and get the services out to the people. But there's a good hub in this area. Any others in group 2 that did I miss anything? Thanks to Taylor for the notes. That's us.
Thank you, Marilyn. Excellent. And thanks to the work of your group. Yeah, good call outs. And Gina, I'll let you do some reporting out, and certainly we'll try to identify things that were different from what's been reported from the first 2 groups.
Yeah, much of it was the same as far as getting the word out. It was a lot of, we need some advertising, we need some marketing, more, so that people know that we have services, know that we can help. We need to do a lot more outreach. There were comments of being able to access specific support groups and making those more known in the community. And I think that's important. There was a comment made that Chance Powell made a comment to, we need to have more access to connecting and funding and counseling our older adults that feel like they have a stigma and don't want to ask for help because they're supposed to know it all and be able to do it all. So we need to let them know that it's okay to ask for help and help them realize that maybe they do need some help. And I thought that was kind of important. We also talked about, this was mentioned, that people need to understand that caregivers aren't professionals. They're just folks caring for their loved ones. And so some type of training might be great for those people. And there was Angeline, I thought it was kind of, and I could relate. Angeline said she didn't know there were services available for her daughter until her daughter was well into her sophomore year. And that's a terrible thing, you know. I mean, someone should be stepping up from the get-go when her daughter's diagnosed and helping her out with places she could go for help. And I think that there was comments made on, let's see, Denise Dustin. She made a comment that maybe the coordinators here at the agency could be liaisons through like the hospitals and the healthcare industry, like Molina or Optum, Sarah added. And I like that. I like thinking maybe we should be doing some outreach and getting together and having these kind of gatherings with our hospitals or our, doctors groups in town and insurance, Health West, maybe there's all kinds of ideas there that I could, we could break out into and get the first people that are people see, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the doctors from step one, getting them on board to pass these resources out and show people where they can go is super important. So this was a great group, great discussion.
Gina, thank you for that reporting out. Something that Brent mentioned at the end of our discussion as well was first responders. In that note of recently the police had been assisting him with a wandering spouse. And so the importance of thinking outside of our normal perspective of the resources that we may have on hand. Sister Graving was also in our group. So I think both she and I called out the asset that's untapped of universities and thinking about our engaging nursing students, social work students, PT students, the whole gamut of students interested in working in social services to be much more engaged in understanding the needs of a caregiver and us as educators bringing that to the table to inform them. So again, Gina, I thank you for your notes you took, and I think lots of good sharing and thinking about what's possible there. I see we have a new chat from Janelle in the chat as well about the barriers. Children with disabilities often in parents' incomes are barriers to resources. I think one of the groups did mention that gap. You don't qualify for Medicaid, but you certainly don't have the resources to really meet needs is a huge concern across the state, I think across the country as well. So I think we have one more, or is that the final group that we have to report out, Destiny?
That's all the groups.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you for helping kind of stimulate some thoughts about how we might address gaps and think about building on some of the existing assets we have in our community. And again, keep those in mind. We're going to be building on those as we move through the agenda. Our next item on the agenda is a break, but before we go to break, we have a basket giveaway. One of Gina Stuckey's many talents is she loves to put together gift baskets. And so we have one to give away. I've done a random selection of our caregivers in the room, and we'd love to give this basket to Teresa Combs, who's joining us from American Falls. And really appreciate you being here with us, Teresa. I'm hoping you're still with us on the call, but would love to celebrate the work that you are doing from American Falls, that Southeast Idaho community as a caregiver. Also wanted to clarify my gift card from Molina. I had names and descriptions a bit confused there. We'd like to give Lori Keys from Pocatello, who's a caregiver for her 3 teenagers, that gift card from Molina. Thank you, Chance, for bringing that to my awareness. So woohoo, Lori, yeah, way to go. We're so delighted you're here. So with that, we will go ahead and take a short, let's see, I think we have 10 minutes as kind of a stretch break. So would encourage you to get up, get a glass of water, a cup of coffee, do some push-ups, whatever it takes to keep the blood flowing this morning. We'll begin at 10:35. Well, greetings all. I think it's 10:36 by my time. I welcome you back to the room and to the Southeast Idaho Respite Summit. Again, appreciate your participation, and I am really looking forward to this next session where we are going to learn about resources and services available through Idaho venues. And so I'll turn the time over to Lynn and Janet, and I'll let the two of you introduce yourselves and take it away.
Okay, good morning. I'm Lynn Fines, a program specialist for the Idaho Commission on Aging. And today, Janet Miller and I are going to review the ICOA-sponsored caregiver support programs that are implemented by our area agencies on aging, followed by the programs offered by VA Caregiver Support Services, BPA Health, Optum Idaho, and Idaho's Department of Health and Welfare, Medicaid A&D waivers, and other programs. But first, I wanted to review the meaning of respite and why it is so important for caregivers and their families. Next slide, please. Slide, please. Let's face it, caregivers need a break, and rest is important if you want to continue being healthy and providing quality care for your loved ones. Next. Caregiving is rewarding, but it's also stressful and includes taking time from work, changing plans, making calls and appointments, and limits the amount of time you have to take care of yourself. Next. Respite offers benefits to both you and your loved one. It can help reduce stress and offer a change of pace. It can help caregivers stay healthy and have more energy and enthusiasm, providing care and support. Next. Idaho Commission on Aging plans, coordinates, and promotes a statewide program of services designed to address the present and future needs of Idahoans and coordinates opportunities for individuals to access private and public pay, long-term care and support service with the #1 goal of supporting older Idahoans to live independent and healthy lives in the communities of their choice, while empowering our 6 area agencies on aging to provide a broad menu of services ranging from legal assistance, home-delivered meals, disease prevention and health promotion, and adult protective services. Among these services is the Idaho Family Caregiver Support Program that supports caregivers through the following activities: information and assistance, support groups, respite, education and training, and limited supplemental services. Eligibility for these services include adult family members or caregivers age 18 and older providing care to individuals age 60 and older, or providing care to individuals of any age with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, or relative caregivers age 55 and older providing care to children under the age 18 or to adults ages 18 to 59 with disabilities are also eligible. Next. For more information on caregiver support programs available in your area, please contact your local area agency on aging. I have provided Area 5's contact information here, but also keep in mind ICOA's website is a great resource with dementia skills training and other caregiver support skills training, videos, and other information. Next slide. The VA has a caregiver support services to support veterans and their caregivers. They provide a support line, or for further information regarding services, you can contact and look up their caregiver support link here. Are these slides, Destiny, will these slides be available as references?
Yes, I can make them available.
Okay, great, as references. Next, please. Another great resource which offers family caregivers of veterans or service member support is the Elizabeth Dole Foundation's hiddenheroes.org. These respite relief services includes meals, housekeeping, transportation, companionship, bathing, and more. Next. Now let's review BPA Health, connecting youth to short-term care to support the needs of the family. Next. BPA Health Program is sponsored by the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare and offers respite vouchers to parents or caregivers of children with a serious emotional disturbance. If qualified, a single voucher is issued for $600 for 6 months per child, and families are authorized 2 vouchers in 1 year. Respite care can be provided by friends or family. This works where families pay an individual directly and are then reimbursed. Next. Eligibility for BPA's Children's Mental Health Respite Care Voucher Program are included here. The child must be under the age 18, a resident of Idaho, has been diagnosed by a master's level clinician and have been determined to have a mental illness and a functional impairment. And also, respite services have been identified on the child's personal centered plan. Next, families on Medicaid are encouraged to contact Optum Idaho, and their number is here. Next slide, please. Next slide. Optum Idaho manages outpatient health benefits for Idaho Medicaid members. In this program, respite is available to families with children who have been evaluated through an independent assessment process. You only need to complete an assessment if you do not currently have Medicaid and earn more than the normal limits, or you currently have Medicaid but want respite services. This limit is 300 hours per calendar year. Please call or visit their website for more information. The next slide provides BPA Health's, Optum Idaho's, and Idaho Department of Health and Welfare contact information for your reference. Next slide, please. This information will be made available following the summit. Next, Janet Miller, the Idaho Commission's on Aging Program Specialist, will discuss respite under the Medicaid A&D waiver and services provided under the developmental disabilities for adults in addition to certified family home options. Janet?
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. So Destiny, if you can move to the next slide. Thank you. I'm going to be discussing the A&D or Medicaid aged and disabled information, and this is managed by the Bureau of Long-Term Care. There's a lot of services and facilities covered under this. Home and community-based services, which are, services that are provided in the home, such as chore. Respite falls under this. Supplemental employment, non-medical transportation, many more. Idaho Home Choice is a program it's part of the Funds Follow the Person program. And if people are moving from a facility home, the money follows them home to make them successful at home. Medicaid for workers with disabilities allows people to work in the community, but keep their Medicaid insurance. And then the rest of those are housing options, depending on what level they would need. Next slide, please. Respite under the A&D waiver. And A&D waiver participants in the state of Idaho receive paid support in their own home or certified family home or residential care facility. And there are 18 A&D waiver services available in addition to respite. And I listed a few of those. And it's really important to know that this waiver for respite is available only to non-paid caregivers that require short-term breaks. Okay, go ahead and the next slide, please. Eligibility, they have to be 18, have a disabling condition, meet both financial eligibility and nursing level of care. And they must need and receive a waiver service at least once every 30 days. Next slide, please. So the Bureau of Developmental Disabilities, many services are available for adults on this program, and there's the traditional support services of Medicaid. Intermediate care facilities are available. So if there's someone, these are specializing in intellectual disabilities, these care facilities. And then, of course, court services and guardianship, self-directed care, so they're able to choose their care. My Choice Matters gives them an opportunity to have their own voice in their care, which is important to everyone. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then under respite under the DD waiver for adults, most of these most of this care is provided in the participant's home. There are a variety of I'm sorry, I'm tripping over my own tongue today. There are a variety of DD waiver residential services available, such as supported living and certified family homes for individual requests, long-term care services, and supports to remain in the community. Again, respite is available under this under the DD waiver who have non-paid caregivers requiring short-term breaks from caregiving. So next, please. So there's a couple different ways that respite can be delivered under this. And there's agencies. So there's agencies that specialize in developmental disabilities, and anyone who provides services under this waiver or under this delivery service, the provider has to be 16 years old. They are employed by an agency. They have to have a criminal background check, CPR and first aid certified. They can provide, this can be provided in the child's home or in the community, but they can provide this in a group in the community. So next slide, please. So respite provided from an independent provider is a little bit different. You can choose whoever you want, but that person must complete the Medicaid provider enrollment process. They have to be 18 years old. They have to be a high school graduate. They have the background check and also have the first aid. And then what's different about the group setting, you can't do group care with this under this situation unless those receiving care are siblings and the person providing the care is a relative. Go ahead. Next, please. Thank you. Limitations. Only available children living with an unpaid caregiver, and it can't be delivered to allow the parent to work, which is really important. The point of this is to give the parents a break. It can't be provided at the same time as another Medicaid service, and it's limited to 14 consecutive days. Next, please. Thank you. Certified Family Homes provides personal assistance and or supervision for adults 24 hours a day in a home-like environment. And they can care for one or up to 4 people. And there are some of these certified family homes that's just one person and it's a relative. These can be paid for through Medicaid if they're eligible, or it can be paid privately. And some of these certified family homes have adult day health care. So respite is provided in these homes if they're allowed for 1 to 4 hours for adults who don't actually live in the certified family home. So next, please. And then, of course, there's respite privately paid through nonprofits or volunteer-powered programs. And here's some examples, different agencies: Alzheimer's Association, Idaho Parents Unlimited, local churches. Anyone, obviously, can provide the care if you're paying privately. On to the next slide. So that's kind of the 30,000-foot view of these services. And we're so glad that you're here today. This is Lynn's and my contact information. I just realized that's Lynn's phone number, not mine, but my email is there, and Destiny will make these slides available. So you're welcome to contact us if you have any questions. And I was going to say, this is a great time to take a break. And I mean, taking a break from caregiving, not taking a break in the program, because that's not scheduled right now.
Oh, thank you, Janet and Lynn. You know, I appreciate your efforts and your talents at walking us through the kind of the alphabet soup of services. And I'm kind of overwhelmed just by listening. So I can imagine how a family caregiver who is already a bit overextended looks at the system and may want to just walk away. So I think, again, this is the beauty of what the Idaho Caregiver Alliance and the Idaho Commission on Aging are really working toward, is how do we knit these silos or systems of care together in a way that a family caregiver and others can enter at any entry point and find the guidance and support they need at their particular situation, and wading through the criteria for enrollment and support that are attached to so many of these public programs. So again, thank you for that. I think let's see. No, I guess we probably should move on to our next segment. But we certainly welcome and encourage people to put questions in the chat, and we will address them as we move along. And again, thanks, Lynn and Janet, for that information, and know that we are working diligently to build a system of care versus multiple entry points for supports for family caregivers. And next slide. So we are going to heartily welcome Gina Stuckey to the platform to provide us with some information about the Idaho Lifespan Respite. And Gina, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself, and what a great picture of of you and Mike, and I'm not sure who else is in that photo, so you may have to call that out for us.
Thank you, Sarah. The other person is Kristen, and she used to work in information and assistance with me, and she's no longer here. She's up at ISU. So the background there is the Field of Heroes that we go out and help put together for Memorial Day weekend, which that's coming. That event is next week. We go out and put up the crosses and decorate them, and it's really a heartfelt event to be a part of. But I appreciate you letting me talk today. I am so happy to have this program. I'm going to talk to you about the Idaho Lifespan Respite Program. Last year with the pandemic, we all of a sudden had a shortage of caregivers with our providers that we work with. And Julie Torresani came to our office and introduced this program to me. And I am so happy that we have it. And it is my pleasure to be able to find people who can use this program and get them enrolled. So first I want to tell you what the program is. And then I want to give you some information, a few examples of the caregivers and care recipients that I have on this program, and then give you some stats that I kind of put together that I think you'll find interesting. So if we go to the first slide, what is Lifespan Respite? This program is a consumer-directed respite program. It allows the primary caregiver to hire and pay individuals from their own support network. The support network can be family members, friends, neighbors, church members, or professionals. The primary caregiver manages their respite time, the respite providers in their support network, and their budget. As the coordinator, I get to provide ongoing contact for the caregivers for their questions, for their reimbursements, and for whatever other resources that I can connect them with. The next slide, please. The goal of the Lifespan Respite Program is to assist the caregiver in their confidence and ability to continue to care for their loved one in the home. It's to manage caregiver stress and burnout by helping the caregiver recognize and identify the importance of self-care for caregivers. It is to assist in finding ways to pay for respite services and provide a contact person or coordinator to guide the caregiver through the process. Next slide. So who's eligible? Caregivers must be 18 years old and an Idaho resident. And they always think I'm funny when I ask them that. Are you an Idaho resident? Are you over 18? But that's the first rule. Second one is the caregiver must be providing unpaid care to someone of any age with a significant disability, special need, or chronic illness. And this guideline has helped the AAA reach out to more than just older adults, which is normally who our circle runs with. So any age, I love that. I can help more people. The caregiver must live with the care recipient or provide frequent on-site visits throughout the day, which are essential to assure the client's health and safety. For example, the care recipient would be unable to get out of bed or prepare a meal, those kinds of things in the absence of that caregiver. No current in-home respite is being provided through another agency, such as the Medicaid A&D waiver, a certified family home status, or in-home care through the VA. And the last one is the care recipient cannot be in an institutional setting. Next slide, please. The voucher budget. This is a $600 budget is allotted for a 6-month period. And I know that $600 doesn't seem like a lot, and a lot of people tell me that, but when you're not paying for professionals or you have a combination of family and friends, neighbors, and professionals, the $600 can go a lot further. This budget can be reauthorized every 6 months. And if you're a kin care caregiver, it's $600 for a 6-month period with a maximum of $1,200 in a 6-month period if you have multiple children. The primary caregiver is the only person who can request.
Thank you for being a good.
I'm sorry. The primary caregiver is the only person who can request and receive the payment. And this program is, so it's like on a reimbursement basis. The caregiver hires the respite provider, they pay them, and then they request the reimbursement from the coordinator, which is me. We don't pay the respite provider. That's, if you think of the caregiver as kind of like an employer, the caregiver hires them, agrees to the hourly wage, they pay them, and then they turn in a timesheet to me and I'm able to reimburse them. Next slide, please. There you go. So some details of the about the program are the caregiver may use their funds all at once or in any increments over the approved 6 months. So it doesn't have to be $100 a month. It can be $300 the first month and maybe $50 the next month, and whatever you need up to the $600 in 6 months. Any unspent portion of the $600 is forfeited. It can't be rolled over into another 6-month period. The caregiver is responsible for tracking the balance of the voucher. However, I always send a statement letter along with the check, which would show the balance of the voucher along with the expiration date. The voucher starts on the date of enrollment, and we can't reimburse any caregiving expenses that are prior to the date of the enrollment. And the any timesheets that need to be turned in to me after the 6 months ends have to be received within 30 days of that 6 months expiration. And let's see, the funds are strictly for respite services only. They can't be used for rent or utilities or anything like that. Next slide. So choosing a respite provider, the primary caregiver is responsible, I think I already mentioned this, for selecting, hiring, training, and paying the respite provider of their choice. The caregiver can hire multiple respite providers if they want to. The respite provider needs to be at least 18 years old. And the caregiver and the respite provider agree on the rate of pay and how the payment schedule will be. So I wanted to give you some examples of how this works, because it's there's some unique situations that I've come across, and it's kind of neat to see how we can help in the scenarios that we are helping. So I want to give you the first example I have. This is a 92-year-old caregiver, and she cares for her 54-year-old son who has multiple sclerosis. She goes to his home 3 times a day. She feeds him breakfast, lunch, dinner. She gets him out of bed in the morning, and she helps him to get into bed at nighttime. She hires a professional to come in and bathe him twice a week. And then she hires her daughter to come in and clean his house every week. So this respite program is a great way to show appreciation to family members, because they don't see it as so much of a chore when they're getting paid for it. And payment can be it doesn't have to be dollars. It could be maybe a $25 gift card for spending the day with their loved one. This is so great because you can really think outside the box. The program is simple. It doesn't have a lot of rules. It doesn't have a lot of forms to fill out. It's easy to manage for my caregivers, and it's easy to manage for myself. And it's such a valuable tool to be able to reach out and help people with. The second one I want to tell you about is a college granddaughter who can come and visit the care recipient, which is her grandma, and that she can be paid for it for the weekend while her mother, who is the primary caregiver, can go take some time off and get her respite. Another one is a caregiver who has a 43-year-old sister who's developmentally disabled. His mother has always been the caregiver to his sister. However, his mother now has dementia. So my caregiver in this situation has moved into his mother's home, and he is the caregiver to both of them. And all the while that he's taking care of his sister and his mother, he's had to learn how to run a farm too, because they live on a farm out in Ingham. So we're able to help. I have another caregiver who has a child with autism, and this program has helped this caregiver spend more time with his other children. And before, he and his wife had to take turns going to the other children's school events because their child with autism has outbursts. So they would take turns who's going to their other children's events. With this respite service, they've been able to have someone come into the home and take care of their daughter with autism so that they can be better parents to their other children and attend those wonderful events together as a family or close to it as a family. So that one's pretty special for me too. I also have a new one that is a couple who retired, and she loves to travel, and she became a tour guide, and she's a seasonal tour guide, and she would go as a tour guide so that her traveling could be paid for. And she didn't do it all the time. It was kind of a part-time fun thing that she got to do so that she could travel. But her husband suffered a stroke not long ago, and he has reached a point where he's no longer able to be left alone. It has affected him both physically and mentally. So this program is helping her on the times that she wants to be a tour guide. She can pay someone to come in and stay with her husband, and she can go off and be a tour guide for a day or two. So this is a really important program that we have. It is my pleasure to offer it to anybody and everybody that I can. And I now want to give you some stats on what we've done here so far. This program, we started last October after Julie introduced us to it. And Julie, these are your slides, by the way. Thank you very much.
I like it.
So to date, we have enrolled 60 participants, 60 caregivers and their care recipients. I have participants where the caregivers range in age from 23 to 92, and the care recipients range from 9 years old up to well into their 80s. 42% of my 60 are rural, out of rural areas. 58% are urban, and I was curious to see that because now I know where I need to get some more help out to. The Caregivers, 63% of them are children caring for their parents. 28% are spouses caring for spouses. 3% are siblings caring for their siblings. 5% are parents caring for children. And then I also have one that is a friend who just cares for another friend. Some of the conditions, which I thought was interesting, conditions or illnesses, 22% of my care recipients have dementia, but the rest of them are across the board with illnesses such as stroke or cancer or diabetes or autism or heart failure, multiple sclerosis, developmentally disabled, aging and frail. We are able to help so many people on this program. Our referrals have been coming from, we tried to do a lot of outreach with the pandemic. It's been kind of a challenge for us, but 43% of my referrals come from family and friends and just word of mouth. That's amazing to me. 20% come from doctors, home health, and hospice. 29% come from information and assistance here at the Area Agency on Aging. Lori Keys and myself are in information and assistance, and we work hard to be good listeners and see how we can reach out to people with the programs that we have. This one has been especially important for rural areas where we don't have caregivers to help them. So I'm thankful for this program to reach out to those rural folks. The other 8% that we have as referrals are, they're coming from everywhere. They came from a Facebook post. They came from a CCOG board meeting. They came from this senior advocate out at the Fort Hall Reservation and an autism support group. So the word's getting out, and we'll continue to do that. The last thing that I want to share with you is, and this makes me so happy, the last thing that I want to share with you is the average on the hours and the dollars spent here so far. Up to date, since October, we've spent a total of $11,202.50 on this lifespan respite program with our 60 caregivers. The total hours that have been reported to me are 1,532.75 hours since October. If you take those numbers and you plug them all in together, you come up with an average hourly cost for care of $7.31. And to me, that is amazing when you're paying between $20 and $26 an hour for a professional caregiver to come in. This program has been very versatile because there is care that doesn't need to be professional. Maybe it's, you're having someone to come over and, I don't know, play cards with your care recipient or read to them or watch a movie with them or take them for a walk. And that doesn't require $26 an hour. So this has been wonderful, where folks can actually hire anyone in their support circle to do these jobs at a lower cost. And this money goes further that way. And it gives our caregiver a chance to get out and take a break. And it helps them both. We know that it helps both the caregiver and the care recipient because they both get a break from each other. They come back refreshed. They meet up again. They have things to talk about. They have a better outlook. The caregiver is able to provide better care. If you have any questions I am happy to answer any questions that you have. And I did want to tell you just one thing, some challenges. Let me just go over the challenges really quickly if I could. Some challenges that I have come across are, and this hasn't been many, but I've come across a couple where my primary caregiver, as many times as I explain it, they just can't manage this program for whatever reason. And I'm happy to re-enroll them for another 6 months and help them and walk them through each and every single timesheet that they need to turn in. That's fine. But that has been a challenge. Another challenge is that I have to reiterate many times for people that the caregiver is not the one who gets paid for the respite, being the respite provider. That's not how it works. A lot of people call me and they want to sign up with the program because they think they're the caregiver and this program will let them get paid for it. And that's not the case. We're paying respite providers to make sure our caregiver gets a break. And then the probably the biggest challenge that I have is reaching out to folks who don't have a caregiver. So I'm hoping that we can come up with another program where I can reach out to people who don't have caregivers, that don't have family, that don't have neighbors, that don't have friends. There's a gentleman out in Firth that is on my mind constantly. He doesn't have any family. He lives out on a farm in the middle of nowhere with no neighbors. He's not a member of the church. And we have tried several different ways to get help out to him. And I'm still working on it and I'll still get it done. But I'm very proud of this program. I'm proud of my 60 caregivers and care recipients. I wish it were 160, but I'll get there. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any. I appreciate your time, and I can help anybody that wants to get involved with this. You can contact me by phone or email. So anyway, let me know if you have questions.
Gina, thank you for sharing your passion and for the details of this amazing program. What you have done here is moving a mountain. And it's thrilling to hear the impact on lifespan, the impact on the caregiver, and the affordability, the efficiency of this program that is really enabling all of you to get services to the individuals that are in need. I think it's just really an amazing venture that you've embarked on. We are hearing similar success stories. Julie Toryansky is on the line, or not Toryansky, but Tortsini is on the line. She has been directing the consumer-directed respite in Area 3. They have experienced similar interest and success. We held a focus group with the Area Agency on Aging in Northern Idaho, and their program is going gangbusters as well. So I think this program is spot on for meeting the needs of the public. I love Jill mentioned that at the national level, there's work on developing training for respite care providers and competencies. I think that will certainly help expand the capacity and the comfort level that a family member would have in identifying a caregiver, particularly when there's not family in the area. I think that is a real challenge, particularly in small rural communities. Judy put a note in the comments. Is training bringing consumer direction to our other services like housekeeping? Yay. That is cool to see that expansion of this consumer directed model, which fits, I think, Idaho perspectives so well. I think we really do want to provide that control and have that individual managing the services that they need. We do have a few moments, so would encourage anyone that has a question for Gina or Lynn, Janet, any of our other presenters to unmute your microphone and pose your question to the group.
Sarah, this is Marilyn, and I just wanted to say a note of appreciation for Gina bringing up the issue that how important this is for the care receiver. We think of respite for the caregiver to give the caregiver a break, but oftentimes I think the care receiver would like a break from the caregiver. Yeah. And it changes the perspective, gives a conversation with a new person. And so I think that's an important piece that needs to be emphasized in this. Thank you, Gina, for what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yes. Gina, this is Lynn. I also like the point you brought up about just care recipients that do not have a caregiver in those communities. How do we serve those folks? Really valid challenge.
I really try to go forth and say, are you a member of a church? Is there a church in your neighborhood? I'm happy to contact someone who might agree to be a caregiver for them. So we tried different angles like that to make this work.
If I could jump in for a minute, we totally agree with you that consumer-directed respite plowed the field, proved to us the value of this delivery service, especially for meeting people with no willing providers in our rural areas. Janet, who spoke with you along with Lynn previously, is currently running a pilot for us, trialing consumer direction up in Garden Valley around our other services, chore, housekeeping, transportation. So that is happening while we speak. So I do want to let you know that we understand this need. We're well down the road. We're currently working with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance around another pilot that we hope to launch early fall, where we again bring consumer-directed home and community-based services, respite, housekeeping, transportation, chore, home modification, to overwhelmed caregivers identified by our Adult Protective Services workers. We'll also be referring those people to our Caregiver Navigator project that is a pilot being run by the Idaho Caregiver Alliance. So we have a lot of really exciting things happening around consumer direction. We're doing a lot of very high-level strategic work. Vicki Yanzik, who is our project manager, just bought Visio so she can start flow charting out how we could bring consumer direction as just a second care delivery system throughout our entire aging network. So again, stay tuned. And we reach out and ask our area agencies to join us. We hope that you're going to quickly jump on that bandwagon, just like you did with respite. So we're a great team. Everyone here today is working together to support older Idahoans and caregivers, and I couldn't be more excited. And again, my personal thanks.
And Sarah, if we have time, this is Julie Torzani, and I'm with Area 3 Agency on Aging. And I just like to praise, Mike and Gina for all their work on starting this lifespan respite program. And one thing that I think Gina pointed out that's always a good reminder is that oftentimes families and friends and neighbors and community members are already providing so much support to families, to a caregiver. And, they're often just doing it out of the kindness of their heart, because that's what, we do as individuals and as people. So I always tell, my caregivers, and I know Gina's in this same situation, where I say, it is hard sometimes to take cash from a friend, right? Because you're doing this because you love that person and you want to support them. And so that's where we say, they were already providing the care. This just helps to reimburse them for some of maybe their gas that they spent coming over, or some time that they had to take off just briefly from work, and so that's why we always say, think outside the box, because sometimes I know it's hard for me, if my friend wanted to pay me to go over and sit with her child while she needed help, I would have a hard time taking a payment from her. And so that's why we always tell our caregivers, to think outside the box. Gift cards sometimes are easier to accept than cash. But that's just the thing that we love about this program, is that there's so many informal supports already helping these people. And it's just nice to sometimes just be able to reimburse them a little bit. Like I said, just, sometimes gas adds up, to be running back and forth for trips. So thanks, Gina.
Thank you, Julie, for that comment. And amen for the creativity that all of you are building into this to make it really person-centered and feel good. Jill has a great question in the chat, actually, I think for the team, both Gina and Julie, is how are we expanding our outreach to assure that this resource is perceived as lifespan? And this is a challenge because it is currently being delivered through the Area Agency on Aging. And so we're very interested in the strategies that you're using to make sure that we are reaching lifespan participants. Gina, I'll let you go ahead and take
Okay.
a shot at that. No.
Well, first of all, we have the senior advocate out at Fort Hall Reservation. We are trying to reach out to her, and I have enrolled a caregiver out there. He's 23 years old, and he cares for his grandmother. But we also know that there's a lot of grandmothers taking care of grandchildren out there. So that could be a huge part of our lifespan if we can kind of break into that area, and that's a goal. And Mike's been helping me facilitate that too. We also, I mentioned I have a care recipient that has autism. So we have an autism support group that we've been, kind of reaching out to. But after our last breakout session, I'd really like to get our doctors and our healthcare agencies in the community, really like to break out with them and get them on board so that they know that this is available. We have done, we did the rack card that Julie sent. We did ours, and I've already passed out an entire box of those and have another box ordered. But yeah, it's just everywhere we go, we're talking about it. And again, with listening to INA calls, we're listening for people who have a need like this. Or I spoke at some community service. I'm the vice president of the Community Service Council in the Pocatello area. I've presented this presentation there. I've done it with the Rotary group in Pocatello. I've done it with the Blackfoot has a community service council as well. I've presented there. I presented with the Seroptimus group in town, locally, and anywhere I can, I'm going to go out and talk about it because I love it. How about you, Julie?
Yeah, same thing, just going off of some of our community partners we already had, plus, just our experience being out in the field. And I think it's just, coming together so nicely because we have the family navigation program, and school counselors are also a big target area for us because, they know everything that's going on with the kids in the school. So.
Great. Some great comments in the chat as well, considering educating school district personnel. Julie, as you've just called out there, special ed teams. Chelsea Smith with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance and the Family Caregiver Navigator Program has a list of special education directors in the state. But we also, I want to honor that this has been a pilot. So I totally get Gina and Julie, that, you know, we want to do this well. And so I think to do it in incremental steps is super important. Gina, I'm really thrilled with your evaluation results that show that word of mouth is probably the best microphone we can have with this. And I think so the work that you're doing and the quality that you're assuring the program is being delivered with is really selling itself. I also want to just step back again and call out just quickly here that as part of our this event, we made a direct appeal to folks that were funding this, to Blue Cross, to Molina, and to Optum, and to AARP, and let them know that the support that they're offering to this virtual lifespan summit, those monies are going directly to help make the bucket a little bit deeper for the resources available to consumer-directed respite in the Area 5 area, which is super important that we, you know, this program requires funding. And again, I think we need to be really creative about where we think about how we expand this. And I think folks have mentioned several entities that may be natural partners as we think about expanding these consumer-directed supports, not only for respite, for other services as well. And that really sets us up well to move into our next breakout session, which is all about, you know, how can we work together to improve and sustain caregiving supports? What needs to be done? Who needs to be involved? Who do we need to bring to the table to help us sustain this really exciting and important work that's been going on in Idaho around caregivers? I think it was Jill that mentioned with the pandemic, I think caregivers have their importance in our communities are more important than ever. So I think we have this opportunity to capitalize on this new awareness of the value of the family caregiver, and how do we continue to sustain that? Well, once again, rich discussions in those breakout rooms. So we'll go ahead and just continue on to our reporting out from our breakout sessions too. Again, if someone has already mentioned a thought that came out of your group, you can just quickly note it and move on to new ideas that haven't been mentioned yet. So Lynn, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, first I want to acknowledge these were some very tough questions. We've certainly got some very good feedback, and I appreciate everybody really digging deep for this. Some of their comments were, geez, the usefulness of the powerful tools for caregivers class and the self-help, the importance of getting that word out and marketing to people and letting them know that there's resources out there. So we need to do, I want to say, bigger, better, louder. We need to be bigger. We need to be better. We need to be louder about the services and resources that are out there. Who needs to be involved? There was, ARP was a suggestion. Universities and extension offices, senior centers, libraries, of course, faith-based organizations, and the Chamber of Commerce. Let's see, where we had, using the newspapers, using media. Let me see here. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting off track here, but those are pretty much the key points we made in my discussion group. Did I miss anything, Destiny?
I would just add there was a lot of talk about possibly building coalitions or advisory committees within the community with individuals that are already trusted members in the community. Maybe it's people from libraries or school communities, or let's see, some other groups that were on there. Churches, of course. You could bring in law enforcement as well, all kinds of community members and stakeholders to these groups to
to help share barriers and strengths in their communities as well, and kind of share the resources that they already have and expand that communication. And again, just removing those silos and utilizing the resources that are already out there as well. And then I think, there was some talk about bringing in employers and some organized labor groups even, and how can we really utilize employers to incentivize their employees, or maybe just make them a part of the conversation, because a lot of them are already. And then let's see, I think those were the big things. Hitting on the libraries again, just really providing technology as well, and teaching the community how to use technology. I know when we had the caregiver conference this last year, we noticed that was a big barrier to some of the people who wanted to attend and get those resources. Especially over this last year, we noticed, with everything being online, that's a great need. And moving forward, technology is going to continue to be a big tool that we use to deliver resources. So that's what I would add to that summary, Lynn.
Yeah, and I would really add Marcia's and Brent's idea of, an advisory committee made up of your key community stakeholders and developing the primary needs of the community. So that was a really great point.
Phew, you're right, Lynn. Folks dug deep. That's really exciting to hear what emerged in thinking about the possibilities. Nice. We'll move to Marilyn's group.
Thank you very much. And thanks to our group. I thought it was a really good discussion. And what I appreciated particularly was that this lifespan was really front and center in this group. There was quite a bit of conversation about how we might tap into the resources of the university, using students that would not only could provide some respite, but it also gives them that caregiver respite perspective that they can carry on into their practice post-graduation. There was a lot of conversation about schools and how we need to get information to schools earlier and do some targeted outreach at both the district level and for teachers, parents, and kind of at all levels in the school systems. Chance brought in the faith-based community as the previous group did, and once again, identifying who the movers and shakers are in those communities. And also how can we involve the business community? That helps them understand caregiving from the perspective of their business. But there was a conversation about how do we incentivize maybe some of the employees to who might otherwise be interested in giving back for them to provide some respite, which I thought was a really interesting perspective. And some of us learned about the VOICE program, which is an after-school program for students in special education. It's, I think, a collaboration between the school district and the university, and it provides that extra skill development for students in special education before they move on into adult life. Can you move the box up at all so we can see? That was most of it, but I know there's...
I think you got it all, Marilyn. There's the only thing that you're missing is it just says that it's a collaboration between the university. Collaboration,
school involvement, faith-based community, and recognizing that what's out there in some of those rural counties. I think this area is not unlike the Boise area, where we tend to focus on the population center and realize there's all those other scattered services in those outlying rural communities, and how can we bring them in and capitalize on what they're doing and who the leaders are in those communities. So that's it. Any of our group have anything to add? The VA was an important component too, how the VA works to support caregivers that they can serve, but also how they marry those supports with other supports in the community. Thanks, Melissa.
Outstanding. Yeah, what a great discussion. And our group was not a blank slate. Just want to say, Gina, I'll let you go ahead and start. We also had a very stimulating discussion. Gina, I'll let you go ahead and start reporting out, and others in the group can add.
Okay. We kind of started talking, Ann Harold brought up the fact that using the proper language so that people understand what we're talking about is so important, because we always get lost in our buzzwords and our acronyms, and a lot of folks outside what we do don't understand what we're talking about, so we kind of lose their interest right off the bat. I think that's important. Excuse me. Julie mentioned, she was talking about how she thinks that there's an untapped area here with caregivers whose care recipients are eventually sent to long-term facilities, and how that they should have some type of emotional support group to deal with their guilt and their loneliness and their frustration, and because they're still caregivers, and all of a sudden they've experienced this loss. And she talked about how maybe it's possible that the facilities themselves might facilitate some kind of an emotional support group for caregivers. And Judy talked about federal dollars for from the Rescue Act, and how they are working on a toolkit. Amanda's working on a toolkit to create family councils, which I thought was pretty interesting and would like to know more about. And she said that would involve maybe our ombudsman getting involved and spreading that word. And let's see, we also talked about hospice being an untapped resource. Let's see. Julie said that, the hospice relies on us so much for the services that we provide, that maybe we could partner up with them to help us get some of our services known and out there in the communities. Mike, we talked about marketing, outreach, all of those kinds of things, and how important they are, and how there's just not enough time in the day to get everything done, but we work on it. And Mike shared that these tiny partnerships through community and government and business entities, like working from the ground up, are so important to grow and maintain from the ground up. So that's always important in these small rural communities. We talked about justserve.org and how important that is, and how they've been a great help to our agency. Mike and I have worked with them many times on different programs that we have, and they are happy to help, more than happy to help. So that's a good organization to work with. And Deborah Island shared with us that with these new clinically integrated networks, that would probably be a great way to reach out to the healthcare area. And I love that idea, so I want to talk to her more about that. But she said with these integrated networks, like the one at Portneuf, it works with Portneuf, Montpelier, Soda Springs. They have monthly meetings, and I'm pretty excited about that. Sarah talked about value-based care, and how a lot of rural doctors are held to value-based standards. And so rural, I cannot say that word, rural healthcare providers are a good area to focus on as well. And then we talked about educators and connecting to educators, and maybe starting up coalitions. And Julie said how important it is, if we were to start up coalitions, to have goals in mind when we start them, so that we, and it, you know, keep you on task and have an agenda. So setting goals are important for that. And working with the counselors in the education system is a good route. We kind of mentioned that once before, and it kind of seems like outreach, marketing is the biggest kind of the outcome. Does my group have anything to add?
Gina, that was a great summary. Another note that Julie added kind of as a caution to this work is, particularly when we're working in small rural communities or counties, is you don't want to wear out those active participants by having too many coalitions, too many activities. And again, it's that whole notion of how can we work across silos and come to individuals as a unified group that won't tap those really valuable resources in small rural communities. So I appreciated Julie's call out for their efforts in Owyhee County and that importance of recognizing the limited resources, personnel, people that rural communities have. How can we do this together?
So true.
Yeah. But what an amazing opportunity to think about really these opportunities that together we can make things happen. And with that, Destiny, I'll let you move to the next slide. And we do have another one of these wonderful baskets that Gina has put together. Thank you. I think this is kind of like the spa day basket. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've selected a participant randomly from who is participating, and we've identified Lisa Tornabene, Tornabene.
Lisa Tornabene. Yeah, Lisa Tornabene.
Oh, great. She and I think her husband are providing support to her 88-year-old father, who is currently being cared for by her 90-year-old mom. So they're kind of the secondary, in parens, primary caregivers. And I think they manage not only the caregiving, but also quite a few of the household challenges or needs of the family. So Lisa, we sure appreciate you building some time in your schedule to join the Lifespan Respite Summit today, and you are going to be the proud recipient of one of Gina's amazing gift baskets. So kudos to you. And with that, this moves us to our final, but I think very important agenda item of kind of what are the next steps? Where do we go from here? This energy, this new knowledge that we have about capacity and opportunity. Would love to do some brainstorming, and if possible, identify some, as I think Gina mentioned, the importance of having very specific goals so that we know we can measure our success, measure our activities. So Mike, I don't know if from today, if there are some specific next steps that you've identified as something that you and your team will be working toward, or assignments you'd like to assign to other organizations that are on this call?
Yeah, well, thank you. I think I really like the way that the three groups were able to come back and have similarities in what they discussed, but then also some very distinct differences. And so that's to me, that's very telling, because it means that we've got several ways that we can look at our next steps. Definitely, I say for our area here, due to the Lifespan Respite Program, kind of getting into looking into this voice program and what kind of services are available there, so we can get tapped in at the schools. I did get I did make some contact this week with somebody from that does a VOC rehab, the juvenile VOC rehabilitation program, or the younger kids in schools. And I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but So we have some possible connections there. And then just continue, just continuation with our partnerships. I think there's probably a lot we can do with the university. And I think this could be done in every community across our state. But for us, it's Idaho State University primarily. And making sure we have some good connections and partnerships with them for many reasons, for volunteerism, for even just what I appreciate we've been able to do over the years is have students do their internship here for different programs, and it just really does bring out more increased awareness for a young population that maybe wouldn't have known about us prior to the internship. So it's been a good opportunity for us to have some from different arenas. We've had accounting and anywhere from accounting with our fiscal office to social workers with our ombudsman, and then even just most recently to the resident physicians we have done some little education training with. So that's going to be key. I think those are at least some key areas. And luckily, we're also in a planning year right now as an area agency on aging for a 4-year strategic look in front of us, I guess, and complete a 4-year area plan. So this information here that we've talked about today is definitely going to be incorporated into what we need to do in our area to address the needs of the best we can for caregivers.
Oh, that is great, Mike. If you don't mind, I'm going to just rephrase what you've shared here as kind of a measurable kind of activity in terms of this next step. Yes. I think what I heard is that, and I'm just going to throw out a date, by the October Idaho Caregiver Alliance meeting that will be held in October of 2021, the Area 5 Area Agency on Aging will report back on new partnerships established within the K-12 education system, as well as within the universities. Yeah. As one. And then I think your second next step, which I think is super exciting, is that as the Area Agency 5 develops their strategic plan, there will be discrete evidence of findings from this summit included in that strategic document.
Very much so.
And we would love to share that through the Idaho Caregiver Alliance as well, because as you know, we have there's about 1,000 members in the Alliance. It touches all of the area agencies throughout the state. And so to share your work with that larger group will be a nice way to celebrate your success.
Definitely.
I'd like to make an objective, a next step objective from the Idaho Caregiver Alliance as well. Okay. We have been blessed with working with some very, very talented communication and marketing folks. Destiny and Chelsea Smith, who I think has been on most of the day, that is a strength of theirs, that they have moved us light years ahead of our work. Yeah. And so I would like to offer from the Idaho Caregiver Alliance, and I didn't really check this out with Chelsea, but we'll figure it out, is that we work very specifically with Gina and folks at Area 5 to help build out some of the marketing messaging around respite and caregiver services, both to caregivers, but also to those key partners in your communities, particularly healthcare. We've been working really diligently with this message to healthcare providers of having them recognize caregivers as a member of the healthcare team. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to offer our supports, and we'll put that same timeline, is that of the November ICA meeting, our communications staff from ICA and the Family Caregiver Navigator program will report out on the work that we've been doing with all of you to help your communications and marketing efforts with family caregivers.
That's great.
That would be awesome.
It. That's great.
Yay. That'd be awesome. Excited to work with all of you again.
It's a good opportunity. I really think, and I think, you think about also what Judy Taylor was saying earlier about the ombudsman going to be setting out a toolkit for some work that they're doing. It's kind of the same thing. If it's going to have to be kind of maybe. I mean, I see this. If we're getting help from ICA, I see all area just on aging. We kind of benefiting from it because if the message is right, we could use the same information.
That's right. That's
across
exactly
the state.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's right.
I'd like to build on Mike's mention of the ombudsman, because I did earlier this year, I did a presentation to the ombudsman staff. And we tend to forget about caregivers of people in facilities. And it's still a huge caregiving responsibility. So I think there's a whole kind of niche that we could build out, Mike, to reach more caregivers that way. And I'd also like to, with Tina Maney on the phone, on the call, on the meeting, she has a wonderful Facebook group, and really shares a lot of good information and brings people together in a way that's complementary to the work that the Caregiver Alliance is doing and the Area Agency on Aging is doing. So if you're a Facebook person, I would encourage you to search for Tina's group. Maybe you could share the name of the group, Tina, so that people could search you out.
It's called Idaho's Caregivers Unite.
Terrific. Thank you. Thanks for being at the meeting.
Definitely.
Marilyn, I appreciate that mention. It reminds me of another objective I'd like to identify as a next step. And we will, and that we as the Idaho Caregiver Alliance, we will add all of the participants that joined us and registered for the Respite Summit to our ICA distribution list. We are very conscious of working not to overload your inboxes, but we send out a monthly newsletter, and we would love to have your voice in that effort. We will also include Senator Nye in that, and other legislators that registered for the summit today in our ICA distribution list as well. And we will accomplish that probably by, I don't know, middle of June. We'll have you receiving our ICA newsletter and updates. Next steps. And I think, as Judy mentioned earlier today, there are some really exciting next steps happening through the Commission on Aging and statewide around adult protective services, which again in Idaho, that's individuals that are 18 years of age and older. I think it fits really well with our lifespan perspective that we're working toward, as well as those very vulnerable individuals, both who are the care recipients, but also the caregivers that are often vulnerable. The other next step, which is kind of built in for us, which I love, is, Judy also mentioned this in the chat, is that Idaho is moving forward with hiring our first ever Alzheimer's disease and dementia program specialist within the Division of Public Health at IDHW. And so we will soon, hopefully by July 1, have someone in that role of coordinating resources, services, and identifying the needs of individuals living with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, as well as their family caregivers. And I think it was Mr. Colby that called that out, is that Idaho was one of the only states in the Northwest region that does not have a coordinator. And we're happy to say that the legislature moved forward with funding for that position. That will be a next step we could add to our list so we can have some more accomplishments too. Other next steps that folks have are itching to put out there in public.
Sarah, I would just say that as we finish up our pilot around consumer direction for our home and community-based services, in addition to respite, that we will be looking for partners as we want to roll that out throughout the state. So right now, our pilot is in Area 3, but very soon we're going to want to expand that into a statewide demo phase before we get all of our learnings and formalize it into just ICOA normal operations. So perhaps we could have a goal around support and participation with the efforts to bring consumer direction to our other Older American Act services.
Fabulous. Judy, to put a timeline on that, would that be something that could be reported out in our October ICA meeting?
Are you saying October 21?
Yes.
I would say yes. I mean, we always have updates. And as I said, Janet, who participated today, is leading that effort at ICOA. So she can report out at the drop of a hat.
Great. I think that would be fabulous to have that as part of our agenda for that fall ICA meeting, to have some very tangible steps that are being taken as an outcome of this respite summit.
So we should have some good updates by then. Our pilot in Garden Valley is going to be wrapping up in June, the end of June. So yeah, we should definitely have some good updates by then. So I'm so excited to have all of your support on this going forward.
Sarah, if you want, I love volunteering my staff because they're wonderful, but you could certainly invite Amanda to that meeting, give an update of her efforts to bring family councils into every skilled nursing facility in Idaho. And I know she'll be looking for partners and advocates around that effort.
That is excellent, Judy. And I think we are very interested in building on her connections that she's developing with those long-term care facilities as well. We see them as an important partner, private partner, to this work of supporting caregivers. So that would be wonderful. I've so noted. Thank you.
This is Liz from Area 5 Ombudsman Program. My Ombudsman volunteer, Marcia, has a comment.
I was very impressed with the slides that you presented on the different grants and the different places that were accessible to community members. And my background is in education. And when I was principal, I just wish I'd had that whole list of things, because the teachers or the schools pretty much know their families and know who's in trouble. And if you had a list like that, you could maybe plug some of them in.
Outstanding. Lynn and Janet, I think she's referring to your slide presentation, walking through kind of the various, particularly programs available for children and respite support and other supports. Would that be something that you would work with Liz on, and using the volunteer? I'm afraid I don't recall your name.
Marcia.
Marcia, using that expertise of Marcia to craft that for the audience, which would be educators and administrators, like you say, school principals. And I agree with you, Marcia. Teachers know their children and their families so well. So I think that would be something that Lynn, I think Chelsea Smith in our shop, you and Janet and Marcia could work together to put together something that would be meaningful for that audience. Great idea.
Thank you, Marcia.
IPOL might have some information that could be added to that group as well. Idaho Parents Unlimited.
Excellent. Great, let's do it. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know Chelsea earlier had a list of, she had a list. So I will circle back with Chelsea on that.
Great, great. And maybe we could have a report out again, thinking about this November ICA meeting or this fall Alliance meeting, a report out on that work we're doing. IPOL will be part of that meeting. So to pull them in prior to that would be great too. So thank you, Lynn, for reaching out to Chelsea, and we'll build, we'll make that happen. Great suggestion, Marcia and Liz. Thank you for that. Well, Mike, any other thoughts from your perspective in terms of next steps? I think I have about 7 pretty specific action items from resulting out of this meeting. I
think I've got well, at least about 5 or 6. So you got me beat. That's usually the case, isn't it, Sarah? I can't thank everyone enough for being a part of this. We can't. I mean, I can make up my own reasons of what I think people need, but it's when those that are with the boots on the ground are represented that we get the best insight, and so that is very much appreciated. I think being able to coordinate with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance as well, and not just on this event, but with events that have been happening over the last several years, have been very beneficial for us as an agency. Some of the audience probably doesn't know, but as a director of the Area Agency on Aging, there's 6 area agencies on aging in Idaho, and we kind of have a little organization, and I'm the representative from that organization serving with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance. And so I appreciate that opportunity, and I know that it is important. The caregiver services that we are able to provide, they're important, and they've helped serve a lot of people, and we want to continue to serve more. I've been a family caregiver for 27 years in some different capacity, and so I always learn from other people, and I strive to learn from other people, and the opportunities we've had to do Powerful Tools for Caregiver classes, watched my staff work with caregivers that finally are getting that, their shoulders are relaxing a little bit. They're not, don't appear as stressed. Seeing that activity over time, it's some of the most rewarding visuals I get to see on a day-to-day basis. So I can't thank everyone enough for their insight, and appreciate this opportunity we've had to be able to work with the Idaho Caregiver Alliance. You got such a great team over there, you, Marilyn, and you, Sarah, and Marilyn. I can't say enough about how great the team is.
It's good to have you on the team, Mike.
Oh, well, thank you. But caregivers are a passion of mine. I tell my caregiver classes when they start that, and it's probably a wrong thing I say. I realize it's probably a wrong thing to say, but I say, being a caregiver is one of the hardest jobs you'll ever have. It's physically and mentally and emotionally challenging at times. Not all the times, but just overall, it can be. And it's really, I think maybe I realize I might be offending people by saying it's the hardest job we all do. It's because it also is the most rewarding for me when I get the opportunity to kind of give back. Anyway, that's what I have to say, Sarah. I just think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to look at where we can go from here and build it up.
Well, Mike, I think you've said that really well. It brings me back to where we started today, with our panel of caregivers and to hear the love that they have for the role they have had the honor of serving in, but also the stress and the commitment it requires to take on that really important role. So thank you for those comments. We also want to thank all of you for your engagement and support today. We're going to wrap up early. Sorry, you hate to do that, but I just so appreciate your work and your engagement. And I think we have some really important takeaways. And most importantly, we hear the voice of those of you doing the work. And that is what we want to have guide any work that we do as the Alliance. And I know that is a commitment of Judy Taylor's with the Commission on Aging as well. So thank you for investing your time in this and taking the and sharing your voice. Judy or Marilyn, I'll let you.
I would love to say a word in closing, and that is I want to publicly thank Julie and her crew at our Area 3 agency. And again, say, as is typical at ICOA, this consumer-directed respite started as a pilot in a single AAA, which was AAA 3. When we finished that pilot phase and got our learnings and got the bumps and got the hard experience, Julie's team took and expanded it into a statewide demonstration. We now have 4 of our 6 area agencies on aging participating in consumer-directed respite. So if you have a friend and you know a caregiver that isn't in Southeast Idaho, ask them to reach out to their local area agency on aging, because 3/4 of our AAAs are now participating in this statewide demo. The demo will come to a close. We'll again take all those new data points. We'll ask our evaluators to tell us what we need to know so we can memorialize this into permanent programming. When we get that permanent programming, we'll have all the data points we need. If we need at that time to go after additional funding, we'll be set to do it. So this is something that will evolve over time. And thank you for being in the grassroots of its development, because this is exactly what we need to know to make our right decisions going forward.
I guess I would like to say on behalf of the Idaho Caregiver Alliance that this is what we're all about. Hearing you, hearing your voices, hearing your ideas, connecting you with one another, and connecting you with the resources that you might find useful, and helping work together to build additional resources. One thing that I kind of mention in every opportunity I get is our Navigator project and how much we're learning from that and how useful that is to caregivers, and working with Judy and her team on how we can expand that to the rest of the state and embed it in other systems is really going to be so value added to the services for caregivers in Idaho, because it meets them where they are and connects them to the supports they need. And the supports that are being provided through the AAAs are expanding to lifespan, expanding to more user-friendly approaches like consumer direction. So I think we're on the cusp of really great things here. And I'm just so excited that I was able to participate today. And I thank all of you. And if you haven't been a recipient of information from the Caregiver Alliance, get ready, because you will be. Destiny does a monthly newsletter for us that's packed with information. And then during the legislative session, we try to get information out on that as well. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest. And thank you for your caregiving.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. I just want to say one thing, if it's okay, Sarah, because Marilyn just kind of set it up for me. But I'm happy to report that the Area Agency on Aging here has submitted just about a week and a half ago, submitted a grant application for some Alzheimer's, ADRD, Alzheimer's disease-related dementia caregiver support. And one of those being the T-Care program, which is what the navigators use for the your navigator project. And that would be one thing that we hopefully, if this grant is awarded, we would get to be able to start that. And so what you're just talking about is maybe hopefully under fruition if everything turns out okay. So, but it is in the process, and we were able to learn about it as well. We would have known about it had it not been for the navigators that you guys are using right now.
Thank you, Mike. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And Sarah and Marilyn, maybe you could also just briefly discuss the partnership with the Spanish navigation program that we have with Yvette, because I think that's an important outreach.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, Julie. And because we now have Yvette Primero and Sandra Zudima are our Spanish-speaking navigators, and they are part of that culture, part of that community, and that is absolutely key to reaching people, establishing trusting relationships, and getting the word out. And Chelsea has been working with them to develop lots of different kinds of materials that will be useful in touching those Spanish-speaking families in Southwest Idaho as a start. We're just very excited about that. We've put together an advisory committee of people involved in the Spanish-speaking part of the Spanish-speaking community, and they're giving us the kind of thing that you're providing today. They're giving us their ideas about how we can best reach Spanish-speaking families, and I will tell you, trust and word of mouth are the two key elements there. And so that's what we're working on putting together. Thanks to Chelsea, Yvette, and Sandra, that's going gangbusters.
Julie, thank you for calling that out. And I just want to mention something that's happening also in your area, and that is PTC for individuals that are Spanish speaking. And we are so delighted with that and so appreciate Mike and his team for taking the plunge and moving powerful tools for caregivers to meet a broader audience in Idaho. So that is coming your way, and we are really excited about supporting that important resource for family caregivers. Now we're going to be able to have the capacity to do it both in English and in Spanish.
And I do have to say it's Raul and his team. After you said it, I could tell on your face, but I wish I could take the credit. We actually are working with them, and hopefully we'll have the same process here with some, in our area with the Spanish-speaking area as well. But if I could take the credit for that, I would. But Julie and her boss, Raul, at Area 3.
I could jump in. Many of you, I hope, are familiar with our 11-module dementia training series. And that has recently had a Spanish language overlay onto all 11 modules. So if you go to our caregiver skills and you advance to the first slide of any module, you'll then hear a prompt that if you want to continue in Spanish, you click the appropriate button. And you can then advance through the presentation, hearing the narration in Spanish. So we're really excited about that. You may not be as familiar with our 6-module loneliness reduction programming, but it's all about how to reduce loneliness and social isolation. It is training that would be very appropriate for anybody, but especially volunteers that want to work in loneliness reduction or socialization programs. And that's also been translated into Spanish. So on the first slide, you have an opportunity to select to hear the narration in Spanish. So we were able to afford that with some of the federal dollars we received during our CARES Act funding So we are excited to have those resources available.
Well, Judy, that is the perfect segue for our closing. And I just want to direct you to the amazing site that Destiny has developed for the Lifespan Respite Summit. This site is active and it will give you access to information about the speakers and the resources, and also information from about the sponsors here. So please, we encourage you to use this website as well as the Idaho Commission on Aging and others that are out there. But we certainly know that communication and linking is really key to this work. But with that, I want to give Destiny just one more shout out for her great work on organizing this virtual Lifespan Respite Summit. It's so wonderful to see these things flow so well, and all of your and everyone's time and energy invested in the initiative as well. So with that, I think we'll make it a wrap. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.